I'm sure will be an enlightening presentation. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Keith Garrett, and I'm the Director and Chief of the Roosevelt Island Public Safety Department. As you may or may not know, throughout my tenure as Chief of the Public Safety Department, we have sponsored several community outreach summits as a way to share information with the community that we serve. Today we'd like to talk about a topic which is viewed by some as controversial. Many have come here tonight with preconceived notions on the topic, and many have come because they feel that the island's officers need to better equip themselves for their own safety and the safety of the community. Hopefully by the end of the presentation you'll be more informed and less apprehensive about the topic of tasers. I'd like to introduce some of the members of my dais. To my far left is Mark Swenson, and he is with Taser International. To his right is Mike Georgioulis. He's a sergeant with the Danbury Police Department and also works for Taser. To my right, Officer Dino Sataris from the 114th Precinct. He is assigned here as the community police officer. And to his right, Linda Jones-Dene from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. There are several RIOC board members that are in the crowd, as well as our Vice President of Operations, Fernando Martinez. So I want to thank those board members for attending. We made a presentation to the Operations Committee of the Board of Directors here in hopes to shed some light on a topic that is of concern to the officers that work here. I hope everybody can see the screen. Okay, the topic is tasers. Everybody can see that? Yes? Okay. For some, Taser is old hat, but for others, it needs to be introduced as a new innovative tool for the Roosevelt Island Public Safety Department. The Roosevelt Island Public Safety officers do not carry firearms, as many of you know. If they carried a firearm, this is what the firearm would look like. This is the firearm carried by 34,000 NYPD police officers here in the city. Our officers have respectfully requested to be armed with these firearms because in the recent past they have made arrests involving individuals that have possessed firearms on them. Thankfully, those firearms were not used in the commission of a crime and were not used against the officers, but that does not negate the possibility that something tragic could have occurred. This is what the taser looks like. It looks much different than the firearm. They're more economical, and of course, they are safer. Before I go into the topic of tasers, I have to introduce something to you to help you better understand the levels of force that law enforcement officers need to adhere to as part of Article 35 of the New York State Penal Law. When dealing with subjects, the object is to gain compliance from those individuals. As you can see from the first one, verbal direction is the first item on the force continuum, followed by physical direction, followed by OC pepper spray. And back when I became a police officer 24.5 years ago, it went to an impact weapon, in this case a PR-24 baton, which our officers do carry, and then the firearm. This was the force continuum. And at any time, a law enforcement officer could use any of these to gain compliance from a subject, to save or to keep safe those that are involved in that particular incident. Since then, the New York State Penal Law has added the taser, and as you can see where the taser falls, it falls in between OC pepper spray, which our officers carry, and the impact weapon, which our officers also carry. So it falls between those two. And as I said at the beginning of the slide, the goal is to gain compliance from the subject. This individual is probably going to be placed under arrest or taken to the hospital based on psychiatric reasons why we may have been called to that particular scene. It's not only because the person has committed a crime. I remove firearm because our officers don't carry firearms here. So if, in fact, we were progressive and decided to implement tasers here on Roosevelt Island, this would be the force continuum used by the officers here on the island, of course with firearm being removed. The after effects, for some of you that don't know. OC spray clogs the mucous membranes and causes tearing and a burning sensation upon the skin. It takes up to 40 minutes of decontamination to wash the water-based pepper spray off of an individual's face. The baton causes physical injury such as bruising and possible broken bones. Hospitalization is often needed. The taser, it has an immediate loss of control of the nervous system and muscular function, but 5 seconds later the person is back to normal with no decontamination process and hopefully no hospitalization. I had a video clip that I was going to show of me getting tased in my Taser instructor school several years ago. Unfortunately, technical difficulties has prevented me from showing that particular clip. But I will tell you that it was under a controlled environment. There were several officers standing around me. When I got tased, I fell to the ground. I got back up. The lead instructor asked me how I felt, and my response to him was, well, I'm okay now, but of course I wouldn't want that done to me again. And that was my honest reply to the lead instructor. But as the previous slide indicated, 5 seconds later, I was fine and back to normal. We already have OC spray and batons here on Roosevelt Island. The taser is the most useful tool in gaining compliance from subjects who do not wish to comply and contemplate fighting with officers. Back when the taser was first introduced, it was not the way it is now. It is a much more sophisticated tool which allows for several options before the actual taser cartridge is deployed. I'm going to show you physically a taser. I do not want anybody to be alarmed by me displaying it. I do not want anybody to be alarmed if I point it in a certain direction. I assure you that the cartridges inside of this taser are inert, so they will not discharge. And also that everyone is safe in this environment. Is there anybody that has a problem with me showing this taser? Okay, this is the taser. Okay, on this taser, I'm going to point it in that direction against that wall. Can everybody see those 2 red dots? Is there anybody who does not? I'll put it on this wall. These tasers now come with red dot control, which basically indicate where the 2 taser darts are going to go. Okay? In addition, there is a button on the taser which shows an electric charge, basically showing the person what will happen if in fact the taser is discharged. Okay? The third option is that on the bottom of the taser there is a camera. And the camera is very useful because the camera, once the taser is turned on, and again, the taser cannot be deployed unless it is turned on. Once the taser is turned on, the camera is automatically activated. This is a very useful part of this tool in that, number one, it gives the sense that the entire incident is going to be videotaped from beginning to end, or at least from the time the taser is turned on until the taser is deployed. And that's very important. I see the hands up. I'm going to continue with my presentation and we'll have questions at the end of the presentation. Very important for the officers themselves as well, because they want to be able to articulate the reasons why they deployed the taser. The taser protects the lives of both the officers and the subjects, not just the officers. Taser prevents injury to officers and subjects, because if these subjects are reluctant to be non-compliant and fight with the officers, the chances of them getting injured is also high, just as it is for the officers. The taser protects the community, and of course there's no firearm use here on the island. And it protects the corporation from liability as well. want to give you some overseas results. In the United Kingdom, they did field results, and as you can see from the slide, in 2009, they had over 3,000 Taser deployments. 75% of those did not require the Taser to actually be discharged, which is to say that every time that Taser was taken out, or at least every 4 times, 3 times the Taser did not have to be discharged because of the red dot application and because of the electricity that is shown, I guess, in the Taser. So individuals refrain from being aggressive, refrain from fighting, and become compliant. They don't carry firearms there either. And basically what they're saying is that it's not a replacement for firearms, but it definitely is a very important tool for the officers to be able to use. In England and Australia, where they don't carry firearms as well, they do carry OC spray, tasers, and batons. They find the taser to be effective and safe, and they indicate that the use of red dot activation gains immediate compliance without having to deploy the taser. In New Zealand, they welcome the rollout of the taser throughout all their districts, and it's noted that there, in 90% of the cases where the taser was presented, the situation was successfully de-escalated without the taser being discharged. Police have successfully implemented tasers across the country. A total of 2,918 frontline staff, including armed defender squads and special tactic groups, have been trained as taser operators, and the tasers are readily available for use by trained frontline staff there in that jurisdiction. Just in 2011, here at Roosevelt Island, we had 9 officers injured. How many officers is the threshold for the community? The answer is 0. We don't want any of our officers hurt. And that number has increased over the last 3 years. We don't want the officers hurt. We also don't want anybody in the community to be hurt, and also anybody visiting the island as well. It costs the corporation money when this happens. Workmen's compensation, lawsuits or notice of claims, and insurance claims. Police Executive Research Forum did a survey and found 70% fewer officer injuries when those officers are equipped with the use of a taser, and 40% reduction in suspect injuries as well because of the taser. In New York City, there was an NYPD auxiliary officer, actually 2 of them, that was shot and killed. New York City auxiliary officers do not carry firearms either. Virginia Tech shooting, no one thought their safety was in jeopardy, and as we know what happened there, now those Virginia Tech campus police have tasers with them. CNN reported a spike in officers killed and injured in the line of duty in 2011. The NYPD expanded their use of tasers to enhance cops' abilities to get the job done. Seagate Public Safety Department, which is not far from here, they also do not, all of their officers do not carry firearms. They report an immediate reduction in their deployments. And it will reduce the number of officers injured in the line of duty here on the island. PSD stats. Our statistics show an increase in the uses of OC spray on non-compliant subjects. Again, these are subjects that are not listening to the officer's commands. Our stats also show an increase in PR-24 baton uses. Our stats also show an increase in the amount of resisting arrest incidents here on the island. And that, quite frankly, is because the individuals see that our officers do not have firearms on their sides, and they feel they have the ability to test these officers by fighting with them. Our statistics show an increase in officer injuries over the last 3 years, as I have indicated. The taser will help us in all of those areas. And what I want to stress before I turn the presentation over to the question and answer period is, I don't want anybody to get the misconception that if trained with these tasers, and again, only officers that pass the training course and qualify to utilize the taser will be allowed to carry that taser. they're not going to just be walking up and down the street tasing people for no reason. They're not going to be doing that because the camera is going to turn on. And if they do that, and it's shown on the video that that's what they're doing, they put themselves personally in a situation where they jeopardize not only their jobs, but they could also be sued as well. There's going to be strict procedures that are going to be implemented that give guidelines to what these officers are and are not able to do, when they are able to deploy the taser and when they are not. And again, the key to the taser is, the new taser, is that it does have a camera which will tape the entire incident. Now again, many of you have come with preconceived notions about the taser, and that's fine. Our position here was to show you that there is a need. The Roosevelt Island community is at a crossroads here. Many people have called me and said we have to do more, we need more officers here, things of that nature, that, you know, how's the crime on the island. Many people saw, or at least were able to view, the large crowd that assembled here on the 4th of July. And people say, you don't have enough officers. How is it that 15 officers were able to disperse a crowd of over 200 without carrying firearms? And I say to those people that they do the best job that they can do with what they are given and what they can use and what their training allows them to do. Well, for those of you who thought that the 4th of July presented a major issue here on Roosevelt Island, I caution you to realize that unfortunately there were 21 documented shootings throughout New York City, 6 of them fatal. And we had no injuries here on Roosevelt Island or property damage here on Roosevelt Island on the 4th of July. Okay, so at this point, I want to thank you for your attention on the presentation, and I want to turn it over to some questions for those of you that have them. What I would like you to do, if you can, is to allow me to call on you. Keep your hands up. I will try to call on you in an orderly fashion. I would ask that you stand up and state your name, and if you live here or if you don't live here, please state that as well, and address your question to the party on the dais who you would like that question answered by. So first,